her friend on the show, my co-star Jessica Strout, who played Silver, confronts Naomi and says, "You weren't raped by Mr. Cannon. You were in love with him. You're in love with him." That was the trigger point, because that was a conversation that had actually happened to me.
Welcome to House of Influence. I'm Charlotte Day, and today I am joined by Hollywood actress, former 90210 star, mental health activist, and charity founder, the one and only AnnaLynne McCord. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with House of Influence. Now, I cannot wait to talk to you in depth about your amazing charity work and all of your mental health activism. But having grown up religiously watching 90210 with my girlfriends, I have to first ask, what was it like being in such an amazing, massive show with so much publicity, especially at such a young age?
Terrifying. I didn't want to do it. I actually was having a little bit of what I call it my young life crisis. I got the midlife crisis out of the way early and had a whole young life crisis. I was like, I don't want to be an actress anymore. I'm going to leave this town. It was so dramatic. Clearly an actress. And I had a moment there where I wasn't sure that it was what I wanted to do with my life, just because I was having an existential crisis. Really, I was wondering what my life meant, because I come from early beginnings. I grew up like American poverty, so I had a roof over my head and we had food, but it was difficult to make ends meet, and getting out and having a drink to go be an actress was basically, I was told, was a pipe dream and was never going to happen. So the fact that I was even out in Hollywood and making it was unbelievable. But then I started to get success, and I realized there's a lot about my industry that is very egotistical, and when you're someone who's come from nothing, you find joy in meaningful moments, right? You find joy matching pretty little leaf colors in the, during an autumn leaf, when the leaves fall, and like you do weird, silly things because you don't have a lot of distractions, and you actually spend time with people and you have meaningful moments. And I was not having a lot of meaningful moments out in Hollywood. I was very, under the guise of being very successful, very young, I was dealing with anxiety and depression, and I didn't have a sense of direction in my life. Even as young as I was, that was important to me. And it was actually determining that I was going to work with this organization that I've now worked with for over 13 years, fighting human trafficking in this organization in Cambodia, that I actually was, okay, I can do 90210 and I can use this platform. And it was a friend of mine from New York who I called, and I was like, I'm moving back to New York. I'm not going to be an actress anymore. I'm going to, work at Starbucks and find a new passion. And she's like, no, you're not. You're going to take 90210, you moron. She's like, this is an incredible opportunity. And it was a huge platform. We didn't even have a pilot. We didn't have a first episode written or anything. And we were already greenlit to do an entire season, which is just unheard of. Obviously, it all had to do with the original 90210 and the hype surrounding that show and how iconic it was. And there was a lot of press everywhere all around us. So it was a lot of, it's in that period of time too, when you're like super, just narcissistic. I mean, for no other way to put it, but like if you're 1920, the whole world revolves around you, and you're just like, if your shirt gets stained, everybody cares about it, like no one actually gives a shit. But like, so you're in that period when you're discovering yourself, and then 10 years later you realize that no one cared, but it takes you 10 years to get there. And I was at that place where I felt like all eyes were on not just me, but me. And it was very confronting. And so 90210, the actual work, we got to have a lot of fun doing what we did, but it was everything that came with it that was a little bit ominous at the time. And having something that was greater than myself, a higher power, if you will, with the work that I had started doing, gave me a sense of direction that allowed me to go through those 5 years of 90210 and actually feel like I was going to do something meaningful in the world as well.
That's really beautiful. It's sort of, yeah, like you said, it really gives you purpose, and then you're going to use that platform to do something incredibly good. Now, that brings me on to my next point, really, because I want to touch on a really shocking statistic, actually, that recent studies have shown that 51% of the population struggle with mental health. And these stats are pre-pandemic. I mean, I can't even imagine what they are today, now that we're coming out of the pandemic. You work really hard to change the narrative around mental health in an effort to destigmatize the judgment that surrounds it, especially with DID, which is what you were diagnosed with. Can you tell us exactly what DID is?
Absolutely. And thank you guys for doing what you do at House of Influence to highlight issues like this and give it a platform. So DID is Dissociative Identity Disorder, formerly known, mythologically known as multiple personality disorder, which is just completely bastardized by my industry and started on an unfortunate note with the psychiatric world calling it multiple personality, because what that did to sufferers was put them into an automatic crazy box. And it's also just has the added element of being untrue. You don't have multiple personalities, which would be the differentiation of traits that really make up different people. There are aspects of that, but what you're really experiencing, and in my experience, it's a disassociation of identities. It's identity fragments. So it's as if I'm, I was explaining it to someone the other day, and it's like, if the glass behind me, if this piece of glass is whole, if someone took a hammer and smashed in the middle, it goes into shards. Yeah. It's all that original glass. The original glass was one piece, so it's one identity. But now you've got a piece over here and a piece over there. And in my opinion, we all have a little bit of this, and dissociative identity disorder is on a spectrum of dissociation, and we all experience not the COVID masks that we've been wearing, but the masks that we wear as humans when we go to work, or when we go to the dive bar on Thursday night, or we're a different version of ourselves, right? We don't change personality, but we might bring forward a more playful side at the dive bar than we would at 9 a.m. on a Monday. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's I like to explain it like that, because I do think that one statistic is very incorrect, which is that 1 to 2% of the population of our planet have dissociative identity disorder. I beg to differ. I'm sure it is vastly larger than that number, but I think that it's relatable to all of us, because all of us, if for nothing else, we all at least disassociate to a certain degree from that wounded child. That's one part of all of us that your psychotherapist will tell you we have that within us, right? Yeah. So that is a form of fragmentation of an identity within the self. So this is more what you're dealing with, and it makes it a lot more digestible than what has been put out there and what the connotation around this disorder has been, which is why for me it's important not only representing myself, but representing people who have the shame. Shame and I don't get along very well because when shame pops up, I punch it in the face. So shame decides to, buzz off most of the time when it's around me. But this and most mental health issues can generate a lot of shame. And for someone out there who's dealing with the hell that I've dealt with and dealing with shame, you don't get to talk, not on my watch. You don't get to say this stuff anymore. As long as I'm alive, I'll be speaking about stuff like this to reduce and remove that stigma.
Good for you. I mean, even you just talking about it to me, it comes across as so powerful and passionate. And speaking about shame, what is your opinion on this crazy culture that we live in that we call cancel culture?
I want to cancel it. I want to cancel culture. Actually, I think Bill Maher, I stole that from Bill Maher. He's like #cancel culture. It's absolutely a shame culture. That is all that it is. And I'm sorry to the people that disagree and think that it's about accountability. That canceling someone does not create accountability. It creates fear. And fear doesn't do anything positive for our world. Just look around us for the last year and a half, how much fear was spread on our planet. We had a real tangible issue, a virus that really tangibly needed to be dealt with, but could have been dealt with with love and not fear. Love means I love myself and I love other people and I want their well-being. Fear means panic, yell, scream, and make everything terrifying. And what do? That statistic of 51% that you said at the beginning of the interview rises as a result of the pandemic of fear that coincided with the pandemic of COVID-19. And for me, with shame and cancel culture, I always go back to, so I'm a little bit of a nerd, and by a little bit, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd. For the last decade, I've read, studied, and listened to every lecture there is on neuroscience and psychotherapy that I could possibly get my hands on. I even did like a 12-week certificate program with the Neuroscience Academy. I'm a total brain nerd. But one of the doctors that I really felt like I went to another level by reading his books and learning about his 30 years in the field of kinesiology. Basically, in his study, he's calibrated the vibrational register. So he's measured the vibration of human emotions for 30 years, and he's put the calibrations in this sliding scale. The human emotion that registers just a couple notches above death is shame.
Wow.
At the bottom of the bucket, you are a walking dead person when you exist in shame. And we are a walking dead society and culture the closer we get to making our entire world this cancellation syndrome. It is terrifying. It's not a slippery slope. It's a mudslide. It's an avalanche. It is absolutely insane. Accountability culture is an entirely different thing and should not be confused with cancel culture, because cancel culture is guilty once accused. And I know that in England, we share similar things in the judicial system. Here in America, you're innocent until proven guilty, right? The ability to make someone guilty because you made an allegation is so incredibly dangerous, so toxic. And also, you have to live with that. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when you realize what you did, that instead of believing in the possibility of redemption, you only believed in ruining someone's existence and shaming them for it. You didn't cause them to be accountable. You scared them. And for me, I came from horrible abuse. I grew up, going through all these horrible things that caused me absolute terrible pain and all the things. And what did I do? I went out in the world and I started causing abuse and pain to people because I was hurting. And that's what we do. And I have to live with the things I've done, not just what was done to me. I have to live with the things I've done. I've tried to make amends and I'm a different woman now, but I have a shadow that I had to face. And I had to take ownership for what she did. And I got to that without anybody shaming me. I got there all by myself because I went on a journey towards healing. And we can inspire and encourage healing that results in accountability if we want to, or we can just shame and cancel everybody and ruin our entire planet and all die off. Because I'm sorry, that's like where you're headed.
Yeah, and I think if more people took the harder route, which is accountability, rather than deflecting and shaming others, and if people realize that shame is, as you said, just above death, perhaps all of this knowledge and education that we can give to people, they might change their actions. Here's hoping.
Absolutely.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping.
You've spoken before about different Annas. You've said little Anna, 13-year-old Anna, and also autopilot Anna, who always has the perfect answers.
Love her.
How did you cope with this, though? It must have been very confusing, especially when you weren't in the place that you are in now and perhaps didn't have as much knowledge about DID then.
Well, so going back to that analogy of this lovely glass behind me and taking a hammer to it, which don't worry, Virgin Hotels, I won't do that. But imagine that this glass had been shattered and you walk along and you pick up one piece. You don't know what the whole ever looked like. It could, in your mind, it could be as small as a tiny little square, and here's this large, piece of glass before us now. For me, I was, there's a little shard of myself, and here's another little shard of myself. And when I had one shard, I couldn't have the other one. So I had a bit of plausible deniability about what I was actually dealing with prior to my childhood sexual abuse memories returning, which happened only 2.5 years ago. So for 30 years, I was just a shard of glass over here and a shard of glass over there. And I didn't realize it was other people's take on me that was really interesting, because they, like everybody, you have your idea of yourself, and then there's how you're perceived in the world, and they tend to be vastly different. Just a little bit. So some of my more honest friends, I have one specific one who he's like, I hate when you do that voice. It's so annoying. I'm like, everybody has a phone voice trace. This is my makeup artist. My makeup artist and I are like brother and sister. We're just like, just give each other shit all day, every day. My sisters, when they're your siblings, you kind of discount it. But then my friends started saying it, and I'm like, okay. So my sisters would get angry at me when I was on a red carpet, because I would go into autopilot AnnaLynne. I did not know that's what was happening. So what was actually happening on the inside of AnnaLynne was severe anxiety. Was just, I was drowning in a sea of anxiety. So my beautiful, intelligent brain that wanted to protect me and knew that I still had to answer interview questions on a red carpet and look somewhat sane. My beautiful brain was like, okay, we're going to create someone who can handle anxiety better by switching off. And so what would actually happen if you were to experience me, for example, if you had been interviewing me 10 years ago, I would just be like, yes, of course. And, I'm so grateful for the wonderful film that we were able to do. And everyone was so great, and everyone is not so great. No. There's always one not great person. I call bullshit. There was, I was doing exactly what you were supposed to do. I'm supposed to say. But it was mindless. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was something I fell into. And then my sister would walk up to me, and normally if you're in a state where you're doing the interview thing, you can be like, go away, like whatever, and then go back to. I would be like, yes, Rachel.
Oh, wow.
To my sister, who watched me grow up and was like, I'm sorry, did you just yes, Rachel me? Like, you gonna get bitch slapped later, lady. But I couldn't, it was like a haze over, and it would be, obviously I would register her horror on her face that how dare you speak to me like I'm a random person you don't know. But I wouldn't have the awareness, and I would actually get hurt by the fact that everyone would be like, okay, robot woman, okay, this, or like I would, because they didn't know what was going on. I clearly was not engaging in a true relationship, in a true relational way. But also I didn't know what was happening because I was severely anxious, coping and surviving, and also had to answer 40 different camera crews on a red carpet, you know what I mean? So that was one aspect, and I've had, other ones too, where like I one that I called the dictator, because the terror of getting something wrong. Right. In my early life, it was very scary to do anything wrong. So I created someone who had to be right all the time, and the intolerance of that. Yeah. Right. When you start looking at it, it's actually 2 + 2 = it's math. It's literally, my brain was like, this doesn't work unless that and that. And so, okay, 2 + 2 = 4, and we're going to do this. And it's intelligent. It's brilliant. And I'm so grateful to my brain. But in the process, some of those alters hurt people that I really, really loved and would never consciously want to harm. And also, the pain that I was enduring on the inside to be shards of glass, fragmented everywhere and not able to feel cohesive in myself. That was a very, confronting journey. And it does make you feel that the overwhelming feeling was that I would be alone forever. Because if you ever really truly knew me, you couldn't stick around, because I didn't stick around. I didn't stick around for me. I split into however many alters because being around the real me must have been so scary. Now I know that what happened to me put that lens over me and created that need to then develop this disorder. But you don't have the pieces to the puzzle until you have, the pieces to the puzzle.
Absolutely. Talking about sort of a sensitive topic and confronting things, in 90210, there was a very sensitive storyline with Professor Cannon. For anyone who isn't aware, Professor Cannon raped Naomi Clark, which was your character. How hard was that storyline to film for you after the sexual abuse and trauma that you have personally endured?
Well, it seems like it would be terrifying.
Right.
That's the logical response.
Sure.
I was so excited. I was like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. We're going to raise so much awareness for this issue. Like, we should do it like this. And I worked with the actor, and I was like, oh, you can do whatever. Like, I do my own stunts. You can throw me around, this and that. Like, I was completely the opposite of what you would expect. Again, disassociation can be a gem.
Yeah.
But what was interesting was I have no idea how many episodes we filmed on this topic, because Naomi in the show is going through this over the course of the end of season 2 into season 3, and she's dealing with it for several episodes. Until at a certain point, her friend on the show, my co-star Jessica Strout, who played Silver, confronts Naomi and says, "You weren't raped by Mr. Cannon. You were in love with him. You're in love with him." That was the trigger point, because that was a conversation that had actually happened to me about a sexual assault I endured when I was 19 years old. It was a person who was in my friend group. I considered him a friend. He needed a place to crash. He was crashing at my place. I woke up. He was inside me in the middle of the night. I froze. I did nothing. I laid there until 5 a.m. until the sun started to peek through, and I could feasibly, like, in my mind, explain that I got up early. I wrote a note that, like, I suddenly had to go to a meeting at 5 a.m. It wasn't really making any logical sense, but I had to get out of my own house. I sat in my vehicle down the street, hidden by a bush, waiting to see his car leave. And then I went back to my place and showered and tried to pretend like that had never happened. 10 months later, I'm at one of our mutual friends' house, and I've obviously dropped off of the face of earth because I don't ever want to see this guy again, but I'm also disassociating and blocking it out. I end up at my friend's place. He and one other friend were the two that I kind of stayed in contact with, but I would only see them, outside of the group. And one of them would be like, "Come hang out with us. You never hang out with us anymore." And I'm like, "I'm sick. I'm busy. every excuse in the book." My other friend, I would just hang out with him. And this unfortunately is so common. It's 80% someone and stuff like this happens. But I had gone to see my friend Kirk, and he came in and he was like, "I know why you don't hang out with the group anymore." And he said, "This guy," he's like, "you're in love with him."
Wow.
So this happened to me at 19, cut to a couple years later on 90210. No one knows the story. This has never been uttered outside. Like, my brain has shut it out. So it certainly hasn't been told to anybody else. The showrunner literally writes my story in the script of 90210 without knowing it, unfortunately, because it is so common. But I'm in the middle, and we have found, I'm still not registering it. I've read a table read. I've filmed the master's side. We've moved cameras. We've shot for 3 hours, moved cameras on this scene, and shot my close-up. And now we've moved cameras again, and we're shooting the close-up for my co-star. And when it turned on her, and sometimes actresses do that, they save the performance until it's like, my close-up. My close-up. Exactly. And she was like, "You're in love with him. You're in love with him." And it was as if I got thrown back to when I was 19 in this moment with my friend, and this whole thing happened. And mind you, my friend he was antagonizing me. He saw me getting anxious and thought that I was defending myself. He's like, "Oh, look at you. You're getting all nervous. You are in love with him." And I was like, no, he raped me. And it was the first time I'd ever actually said the word or acknowledged that that's what that was.
Wow.
And so that moment got slammed into my mind in that second with Jessica Strout on set at the end of the night. they cut the cameras, and I was bawling. I went into hysterics. Like, just my whole body was wrapped with tears. And Jess was like, wow, thank you so much. I'm like, bitch, that was not for you. like, honey, no, this is like something else is going on. I took off running off the stage. I end up like hiding in one of these little enclaves in the side of the stage wall. And my makeup artist, a different makeup artist than my friend now, but who's also my friend on the show, he came and found me, and he just put his hands safely on the back of my shoulders and said, "It's not happening, and it's not happening anymore. You're safe. You're safe. You're safe." He knew, obviously, what had happened, and that was that. And then I blocked that out too, and so it was really crazy. But the irony of all of it was that I had meetings about this role, about playing these scenes, and never had triggers. And there was serious physicality to the rape scene.
That was, yeah.
That they included in the show, and none of it registered anything at all. It wasn't until that moment when it was the exposing, because my greatest fear was shame.
Yeah.
That's why shame's not invited in my world anymore, because shame was the lord and master slaver over my life for a very long time.
And I think that is a key example of how sometimes what you see on TV or on social media is not actually what's happening. I mean, that is a prime example, because when I was younger, as a fan of the show, I would have no idea that was going on with you. And obviously it was so difficult, and it's only now that I realize, and it's a fantastic example to show that. Yeah. It's all sort of smoke.
You never know what someone's battle is. You never know what someone's going through.
Well, it's amazing to see you in such a good place that you've sort of come through this, and it's really, really inspiring. On top of all of the acting that you do and the mental health activism, you are also heavily involved in charity work and have been for years. It's your passion to fight human trafficking, sexual violence, and slavery. That is sort of the modern slavery, if you like. And you've worked together on Heart, but more recently you have founded the Love Storm, which I personally think is an incredible message, and it's so powerful. Can you tell us more about the Love Storm and what it is that you're trying to achieve for anyone who isn't aware yet?
Yes, thank you so much. So the Love Storm was the personal manifestation of this journey of both my life and the work of fighting human trafficking kind of married together and coming into one. So we launched it last year on our U.S. National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, January 11th. And we had a global tour planned. London was one of our stops, actually. Then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, well, we won't be doing that this year. But we will be coming to London, going to South Africa, Australia. We have 22 cities. Super exciting. There's incredible organizations in England that are working to fight this issue. You guys had a situation with the lorries back a couple years ago where human trafficking victims were found, unfortunately, inside the cabin. And so this is it's in every country of the world. And right now we have a bunch of little organizations, and they're like little waves doing what they can. I want a tsunami. I want a big storm.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we're storming the planet with love, with the Love Storm. But the marriage of both this fight and also my own personal journey was what kind of became the brainchild behind the Love Storm. And it originated with this incredible woman who's a survivor of the Holocaust. I remember hearing her speak. She was 87 years old. She's practicing psychotherapist at 87, still practicing. She dances out, like ballet twirls out onto the stage. And she's like, yes, I'm 87, and yes, I'm dancing. And I was like, oh, I love this woman. I just want to squeeze her. But she said something that stayed with me, and it has through the years. She said, you can kill terrorists, you can kill fascists, you can kill communists, but you'll never kill terrorism, you'll never kill fascism, and you'll never kill communism, because they are ideas. What became very apparent in my own life, in free countries, right, where we're free, quote unquote, was that, I couldn't have been more enslaved. walking around free United States of America. And I realized that slavery has existed for thousands of years. So who am I to think that I'm going to stop it? Unless we come at it from an angle we haven't come at it from before. And what I realized, and I was called back to this wonderful woman, and what she said, slavery is an idea. Freedom is a better one. And in order to go beyond, to transcend slavery, we must set ourselves free. So the Love Storm is about a personal stake in the fight to end modern day slavery, and not just the physical aspect of slavery, which is 48 million people strong. I mean slavery, 7.8 billion people strong. Every single one of us at some point in our lives will feel or think or believe that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy of love, that we're not pretty enough, smart enough, successful enough, wealthy enough, whatever the narrative is that gets stuck inside our minds and stops us from being able to be who we truly are. At some point, those invisible chains, and they're so hard to break because we can't see them. Yeah. But at some point, we will be enslaved to one or many or all of those belief systems. And until we set ourselves free, how can we set our world free? We have to heal this world and end slavery from the inside out. So the Love Storm is about taking a personal stake in the fight to end slavery inside yourself. If you also help our charities and you also get on board and do this in a tangible way, we're so grateful. But if you just go home and you set your household free, you are changing the idea around slavery. You are taking the power out of that idea and you are putting it into a better idea. You're putting it into the idea of freedom. And that is what we haven't done. And the history books have proven that we learn from history that we don't learn from history. I want to learn from history and I want to do something different. And to me, this is different. If we come at this fight from an energetic level and we unite in an energy field that's like a storm, a powerful storm, we actually could possibly end slavery. And I don't think it's a fantastical idea at all.
No, and I think it's a really exciting idea. And I'm sure that a lot of people in the UK will be really excited to get involved. You said that you were going to come to the UK to do a sort of the United Kingdom storm. When can we expect that to happen? Would it be this year or next year?
I would love for it to be this year or next week because I love the UK. But I think feasibly looking at just how everyone's still kind of scared to fully be in the world again. We're getting there with everything that's happened in the last year and a half. I would say it's safe to say that 2022, we're going to be able to really start relaunching the physical aspect of the global tour and be able to come to the UK. So you'll just have to let me know when the best weather is.
Well, you know what? If you came today, the weather is incredible. We're having some sort of heat wave. So
okay, I'm calling the team.
Jet over. We've got a storm to create.
I love it. Yes.
Now, I want to touch on and congratulate you on your newest movie, which has just come out, Feral State. You are sensational in it. But what I want to ask is, this is a very different part for you to play because you are sort of known as the salacious bad girl. Is it now that Hollywood has finally accepted you as, dare I say, just the sexy one?
I'll let you know after this movie does well or not. No. I think I can't only fault Hollywood, though I have for many years, but I've been judged for the exterior of what I look like from the time I was a teenager and had blossomed into a young woman and didn't understand why I was being judged that way because I was homeschooled and no one ever told me I was supposed to be a cheerleader. I was just me, and I live by that, and I'm the nerd that I am, and I'm into my little obscure things that I'm into, and I stay true to that. But it's not lost on me that if you have certain geometric lines of symmetry that you're perceived in a certain way. And the perception of me when I walk into a room, as was stated to me by the former head of Paramount's talent department, was honey, you look like a bitch. And I was like, and he said it to an 18-year-old girl. But I honestly was appreciative of it because I never understood. I didn't get why. I'm thinking of myself as an actress, right? I'm thinking of myself as a thespian who came from the stage and, like wants to perform and can put on any face or anything and become something else. But there is a major part of what we do as humans, going back to that whole judgmental culture that we have. We look at someone and we make a judgment based on how they look and how they hold themselves and what their, just their presence. We make that within a split second. It's not, we can't even be held, I can't even fault someone for it because it's almost biological. Yeah. So there's an aspect of that that's played into my career. And I had read something on Sharon Stone, who I deeply love for a million reasons, but definitely for this. And she literally couldn't get arrested, like in the early days. Like she had such a hard time. And one of her coaches said, stop pretending that you're a nice girl. You're not. Wow. She excelled and she's a wonderful human, but she's very intelligent and she's quick and she'll cut you at the knees. And that's what her coach was seeing, that this was her strength. And he's like, stop making that a weakness. Stop trying to be this smaller version of the woman that you are. Be all that you are. And I really loved that because what it gave me was that I could embody these villains and these vixen vamps and all these things and bring humanity to them because I can be with the darkness. Yeah. Everything that I've been through, everything that I've survived, I can sit in your darkness. I can sit in a person in an Uber. Like I've had people admit to me that what they've been through, their trauma and stuff in a 15-minute Uber ride, because that's how open I am with my story. And that's how deep I can go into your pain and you not feel shame and I don't feel uncomfortable and we can just share, and it can be this sense of unity consciousness that we're greatly in need of now on our planet. Yeah. And I think that's played into the villain roles that I played. Naomi was technically on 90210 even. She was the bad girl, but she became lovable. Yeah. And the truth is, we're not good and we're not bad. Even the person who sexually abused me as a child and the person who sexually assaulted me when I was 19, they're not bad people. They made bad decisions from bad places that they were in at the times that they were in it. And they all, from me, from my point of view, deserve an opportunity for redemption, which is why I wouldn't cancel them, why I wouldn't shame them, why I would invite them in and ask them if they want healing too. Because there's no way that they were happy people when they hurt me. Happy people don't hurt people.
No, and I think for you to come to that sort of realization is so incredibly powerful. I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. And that really brings me on to my next point, because here at House of Influence, we have launched the Good Influence Project, which highlights those content creators who are transforming social media through conscious content and, more importantly, good influence. We are so impressed with everything that you do, and we believe that you are the epitome of good influence. So we have decided to name you one of our top highlighted GI influencers.
Thank you. I received that. I heard so much, and even out of my own mouth, being like, God, social media is so toxic. Social media is so toxic. And I was like, it doesn't have to be. Oh. Olivia Wilde and I were in Haiti 3 weeks before the earthquake happened, and she'd been working with them for years. That was my first trip to Haiti. And 3 weeks later, I had been shit talking all of Twitter and social media. Instagram really hadn't hit at that point, but it was still, I'm dating myself. But Twitter was the thing at the time. And she raised, I think it was $14,000 on Twitter in one day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get on social media because you can help your charity. And I realized that this thing that I kept calling toxic could be toxic if you look at certain pages and see certain things and buy in and feed that part of yourself that wants to feel unworthy and unable to be whatever. But it could also be influential in a beautiful way. And I so appreciate the GI nod. I'll take it. And I can't wait to see who else you guys are highlighting, because those are the people that I want to follow.
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. You have been an absolute pleasure for me to talk to. Your passion and enthusiasm for creating good influence is honestly astounding. Now, for everyone watching at home, you can follow AnnaLynne McCord on Instagram at
the AnnaLynne McCord.
And if anyone watching wants to follow your charity, where do they find it? On Instagram at
The Love Storm. And thelovestorm.com also if you want to join the movement.
Fantastic. So thank you everyone for watching. You can follow House of Influence at We Are Hoy, that's HOI, and you can follow me on Instagram at This Is Charlotte Day. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you subscribe, ring that bell to get notified on all of our videos, and we will see you next